Now, the big story yesterday was political. It was about what was going on with Witkoff, with Putin. But that doesn't mean that the war on the ground and the war of drones isn't still booming. I'll show you all that. So yesterday, I want to go back and correct the record from yesterday. Yesterday, topic was Russia's shadow fleet was nervous. Fourth hit on the shadow fleet, but it looks like the Ukrainians are claiming that they didn't hit the fourth one. I don't know how it happened or who hit it or if it was Russia but so just to correct the record, Russian lie, quote, Ukraine hit the Russian tanker Migvolda 2, which was heading from Russia to Georgia with a cargo of sunflower oil. This is what Russia media is writing about. The reality is Ukraine had nothing to do with this incident, stressed the spokesperson for the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry. We officially refute any such accusations made by Russian propaganda. So they hit three, and they take credit for that. The fourth one, not so much. But then we also saw this today. Another Russian vessel has broken down just outside the Istanbul Strait. Anyone who trades with Russia should avoid it. So, yeah, some of them are just old and dilapidated, and this is what Russia can actually use. Okay. So FPV drone blows up the positions of Russian drone operators. This was yesterday during the day, not last night. Here's the after, and here's the before of the building. And again, the after is not looking so good. But this is where Russian drone operators were. Okay, 2 FSB officers injured in drone strikes in Chechnya. 2 officers of Russia's security service were injured in Chechnya after Ukrainian drones struck an FSB building. Again, this is a different building than what I was just showing you. The UAVs hit the facility at night, marking the second such incident in weeks. All right. Last night, day over day, what was going on the battlefield? Well, not on the battlefield, with the drones going out. And you can see the concentration of drones and where they're heading. Overnight, Ukrainian drones struck this one's going to give me a run for my money, Tamovneft Org Product Oil Depot in Dmitry. Yeah, I'm going to screw up this name after getting that one. Dmitriyivka in the Tambov region. Okay, friendship is over. The Druzhba pipeline, which means the friendship pipeline to oil pipeline to Europe, has been blown up again in Russia. Damage to one of Russia's key oil arteries shows just how vulnerable it is to energy infrastructure. And you can see a pretty big boom there. So between the oil depot and the oil pipeline, there was some significant damage. The Druzhba oil pipeline in Russia again hit in the Tangarog-Lipsk section, Ukraine's intelligence reported. The pipeline supplies Russian oil to Europe, including Hungary. Remember, Hungary just made this big deal. I'll show you exactly how that works in a little bit. The attack used a remotely triggered explosive device with incendiary compounds to intensify the fire. So, okay, so now this is what I was talking about. If you're in Russia, the Druzhba pipeline comes from Russia. Here's the border of Russia and Belarus and the border of Ukraine. And it comes out here and it can go up into northern countries, or it can go down south into Slovakia and Hungary. Right. So if you hit it right here in Russia, well, it's not going to make it to Hungary. And Orban is depending on things to be coming from Russia. All right, so let's see what was going on. Overnight, December 3rd, Russia launched 111 drone attacks, mostly Shaheds. Again, once you get below about 150, they're saving up for a big assault. Air defenses shot down or jammed 83 of them. Not great, not terrible. Strikes hit 13 locations. Kherson region, 3 dead, 3 wounded. Police document the aftermath of Russian strikes. Again, the kind of damage it's like cars and apartment buildings. Like that's what Russia's going for here. All right. Ukrainian engineers, led by an AN-52, a former Antonov engineer from the 80th Brigade, built a smaller version of the MQ-9 Reaper for strike missions. That's pretty cool that they were able to create this. They created it using 3D printing. They upgraded the drones with stronger batteries, improved the control and drop system for testing production. I'm telling you, Ukrainian technology, the way that Ukrainians innovate, I know that necessity is the mother of invention, and that's why they have to do what they're doing, but it's just mind-blowing. Shelling claimed the lives of 2 residents of Donetsk region, with 5 more people injured last night because of Russian drones. Okay, battlefield, 1,200. That's high. We haven't seen 1,200 for a couple weeks, maybe. And again, the average was 1,008 in October, 1,030 something in November. So 1,200's high. 6 tanks off the battlefield, 3 armored fighting vehicles, 12 artillery systems, 47 vehicles and fuel tanks. Roughly 200 combat engagements recorded day over day, highest casualties since October 12th. That's what I'm saying. It was high. Notable armored vehicle losses, drone losses remain below the 7-day average, triple-digit overnight attacks by drones. Okay, cross direction. This is the one everybody's paying attention to. The Russians conducted 48 assaults on the positions of Ukrainian defenders in Pokrovsk. This pocket here, I'm just telling you, it's the Russians really, really want it. The Ukrainians want the Russians to want it and be in there and be fighting there, because they seem to have enough control over the area to be able to make this meaningful. Okay, so Putin claims that Russian troops have seized Pokrovsk and Donetsk Oblast, calling it a good base for future offensives. It would be a good base if they controlled it, but they don't actually control it. According to everything I understand, the Institute for the Study of War sees no proof of full Russian control. Are they there? Yes. Are they gaining more ground? Slowly, yes. Ukrainian defenses around Pokrovsk remain strong. Terrain and weather pose major obstacles. Russian units in the area severely degraded. The much-hyped breakthrough might be little more than the fog, both literally and politically. Now, again, we were just dealing with negotiations for peace terms, and so to look stronger, you want to look stronger before you go into those peace negotiations, and I think that's much of what the hype was. But they are in Pokrovsk. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Today, Russian Marines from the 40th SMB are attacked near Pokrovsk. As a result, they lost 3 tanks, 8 IFVs. That was yesterday. On the Pokrovsk front, Ukrainian airborne troops pulled off 2 daring stage rescue under the constant buzz of enemy drones. A soldier, nearly losing a leg to shrapnel, was first carried manually to a point where a robotic ground system could take over. And this, again, the ground UGVs, unmanned ground vehicles, they're playing a bigger and bigger role as time goes on. Now, we're also going to look at Konstantinivka, because the Russians said that they bagged Konstantinivka as well. Russian invaders attacked Ukrainian defenders 27 times. That's high. For any other place on the battlefield, that's fairly high. But Konstantinivka is not encircled. Zaporizhia region, Huliopol, we've been talking about 5 times. Again, Huliopol became a thing, but then it seems like it's controlled, and it also seems like the terrain lends itself to not taking more ground. The whole Ruski Mir in 14 seconds. These Russians are filming themselves amid the ruins of Pokrovsk. One of them says, "We're off to glory and adventure." This is their reality. This is their adventure. They're coming to destroy lives. This is what you see. This is what the Ruski Mir brings to Ukraine. All right, fiber optic cables wrapped around a motorcycle wheels stopped a Russian assault group. Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, because you were seeing, I showed you how there was it looked like spider webs just coating the landscape. And I was thinking, okay, so I get how a tank can go over that, but a tank's vulnerable. But these motorcycle assaults, it's just bad. Okay, FPV flies inside a Russian position to identify the hidden infantry within it. Again, look at how awesome, how controlled the FPV drone operator has to be in order to get into there. FPV with automatic target acquisition system in service of Azov. Now, what's interesting about this is the automatic target acquisition part. That's AI. AI is going to be playing a larger and larger part on the battlefield. I asked Viper about that the other day in a live stream. And he confirmed, yes, AI is being used, and it's increasingly so being used. NATO General Keller reveals a stunning statistic. Ukraine's drone force makes up just 2% of the military, and that's planned to grow to 5%. It's responsible for up to 50% of Russian losses. That's just crazy. I mean, it's just amazing. Okay, he also added, I see no signs of waning support from the West. Okay, Russians show videos of a swarm. They can do this too, of Ukrainian FPV drones sitting in ambush somewhere near the front. The Russians can do this. The Ukrainians can do this. Here are FPV drones just sitting there waiting to launch up and go do their work. SBU detains an FSB spotter who directed Russian shelling on Kyiv. So these kind of things happen. Yesterday, I was showing 2 incidents of corruption, or 1 incident of corruption, and one, I think it was a UK soldier who was actually working for the Russians. These kinds of things happen. We have to address them. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about something I normally don't talk about in the morning daily brief. Rubio here is talking about how some believe that we should just keep funding Ukraine with unlimited sums for as long as it takes, but that doesn't match reality. And more to the point, Trump is saying that the U.S. is no longer funding the war in Ukraine. Now, he looks at that as a good thing. They're no longer ripping us off. They're paying for this. Okay, so Ukrainians and Europeans are paying for this. Let's look at this. European Commission is set to unveil a major legal proposal this week that would unlock frozen Russian assets for Ukraine while still leaving the door open for fresh EU borrowing or a hybrid funding model. So they keep going to try to seize those frozen Russian assets. What I showed you yesterday or the day before was that there was clearly the U.S. envoy was told in no uncertain terms that the frozen Russian assets will be returned to Russia after the war is over, which is kind of terrible because it should be used, or there should be some kind of mechanism for rebuilding reparations after the war. And yeah, anyway, Belgium is dissatisfied with the legal basis for the proposed reparations loans using Russian assets. The foreign minister said the Commission's text does not adequately address our concerns. It's unacceptable to use these funds while leaving Belgium alone with the risks. So he's worried that Russia's going to take it out on Belgium because if things go wrong. So he wants to spread out the risk across other European nations. Okay, I mean, I guess they could do that. Germany will provide an additional $200 million in U.S.-made weapons for Ukraine through 2 packages under the Pearl mechanism. Berlin will also contribute another $25 million. Again, this $25 million is in euros. The $200 million was in U.S. dollars. To NATO's comprehensive assistance package to supply Ukrainian troops with winter gear and medical support. Canada is stepping up by providing another $200 million under NATO's U.S. weapons procurement program. Ireland will provide Ukraine with another 100 million euros in non-lethal military aid, and they've already contributed 340 million in financial support. Norway is stepping up with another 500 million contribution. It's Norway's second major commitment to the Pearl program within 6 weeks. So thank you, Norway. Again, this is that same Norway, $500 million for the purchase of U.S. weapons. This is new funding unrelated to the national budget, so good on Norway. NATO countries will plan to spend 1 billion euros per month next year on U.S.-supplied weapons for Ukraine, according to NATO Secretary General. That sounds like a lot until you realize there's only 12 months in a year. That's 12 billion euros, and that's not a lot compared to, say, the 70 or so that the U.S. put in just a couple years ago. All right, so I was talking about AI earlier, and I thought, this is interesting. I just happened to stumble across this image. AI is being used to identify shoplifters just by identifying the patterns. AI is going to be big. I've told students in class, I think AI is going to be bigger than the internet, which is, I mean, it's built on the internet. It needs the internet to function, but it's going to be a huge phenomenon. All right, last couple of things. He killed more Slavs in the 20th century. That's Stalin. And he killed the most Slavs in the 21st century. The most in the 20th was Stalin. The most in the 21st was Putin. And Putin tends to idolize Stalin. There's more monuments. There's like 120 or so monuments to Stalin up in the or former Soviet Union. Well, actually, in Russia, not other former Soviet Union countries, and 100 plus of those went up during Putin's administration. Isn't that interesting? All right, last little bit here. Darth Putin. Today is the 5th time that we've captured Pokrovsk, a major defeat for the American empire. All right, my friends, that's all that I have for you in this video. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person who cares about Ukraine.